Last year I got to experience an awesome, full-on Cyberpunk district at Greylight. So when I heard they were doing another round of LARPs, I decided to sign up again. But this time, as an android. Did you know not all LARPs let you write your own character?
And I've done it again! 6 weeks left until the event and I still gotta get started. The general brief for this android is it's a service android working in a restaurant, and also the person that maintains this android doesn't have the highest budget. So my idea is to go for a scrapyard android to make it look like it's patched together bits and pieces. Maybe the person was able to acquire a few good bits at some points, but it might look a bit patched up. Aside from that, the android also should appear as if it can handle something. It's a service android, they will be well used. So I got lots of ideas, but what does that mean for the crafts? I've got 2 boxes of fiber optics here that I maybe might have ordered already before I even know which android I was getting. And I've got the box with the mandatory mask. Aside from that, for the clothing bits, I want to try playing with gender for once. I want to see if there is a way that I can make it both masculine and feminine at the same time. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'll try. I remembered I still had a pattern laying around of a bodysuit. I want to cover up pretty much fully. Maybe 1 or 2 bits, but I don't want to have a whole lot of skin that is natural skin showing. I mean, I am an android after all. And what better way than to make a hyper-futuristic cyber android than to use a pattern from 2002. I want to use this sweater pattern as a jacket. The thing that I want with this jacket, it has to look bulky, chunky, maybe add some shoulder padding so it sits way higher than my actual shoulders. Maybe also shorten it so you can see the rest underneath, but that's all sort of stuff that I'm going to figure out while I'm going to do it.
In theory, the alterations that I did to the bodysuit were pretty simple. I wanted it to end a bit higher on the hips, and to be able to go to the toilet, the body was cut in half. I also decided to move the zipper to the front. Working with stretchy fabrics is always a challenge to cut straight grain, and this one even more so because of the stripes. As the folded fabric was not playing nice on the bottom layer, I even decided to cut each piece separately. To get this even on a fabric like this, it's easiest to use the lines on the fabric itself. Let's start with putting the top half together. We can already disregard some of the instructions because of the alterations. First, I'm stitching the back seam, and well, this is a really tricky fabric to work with, and I have to be very careful with the serger. So for the other seams, I did decide to use the regular sewing machine first before the serger. Less chance of cutting irreparable mistakes. At the same time, I am digging the way the fabric looks, so it was a good choice nonetheless. Then the shoulder seams could be stitched, the collar attached, and the side seams closed.
Next up, time for the zipper. This is the moment that we throw all of the instructions out of the window, because instead of on the back, we do the zipper on the front. Instead of an invisible zipper, we're doing a very visible white zipper on black. I think I'm going to have the zipper run all the way to the top. I think it just looks nice, and in a way, combining the black with the very bright white zipper is on purpose to somewhat resemble a bit of a butler. We're going to have to do this very, very neatly. With all the stripes in the fabric, you're definitely going to notice if this is slightly crooked. So, let's see how long it will take me to insert this properly.
After much fiddling, I'm happy with most of the zipper except for the collar part. First, it was lined up with the stripes of the fabric, but that caused it to sit strangely, so I changed the placement to lay flatter against my neck. After 2 more tries, it finally got where I wanted it to be. The most important part about closing the rest of the front seam is that the stitch line of the zipper continues nicely into the seam. So part of it was done by machine, and then a tricky bit of hand sewing. With that, the body is done and we can continue on the sleeves. For now I'm leaving the wrist ends unfinished, so we can determine the sleeve length once I actually bought some gloves. To make the entire outfit less warm, I opted to go for the option with bare shoulders and reinforce the edges by stitching on some elastic and folding them over. And by inserting the sleeves and finishing the other edge of the armhole, the top half is done. Time to continue on the bottom half.
For the pants, I'm opening up my folder of very, very old patterns. I actually keep all of the paper patterns that I trace with a piece of fabric so I know which pattern belongs to which project. And we're actually looking for this pattern, which is a pair of very baggy pants, and I already made them many times. I also used this for my Zuko cosplay, which is why you're here. But anyway, let's see how we can adapt this pair of pants again to suit this project.
For now I'm just cutting and sewing the pants pattern as is. A nice bonus of a pattern you have made a few times is that it goes pretty fast. Being able to use the serger in one go and having a break from the finicky, stretchy fabric is very nice as well. Then, the rest of the bodysuit was sewn up on the middle seam, side seams and crotch seam. The leg openings were also reinforced with elastic. They will be sewn to the non-stretch fabric of the pants later, but giving them some extra sturdiness can never hurt.
Time for what I can only describe as the most ridiculous fitting ever. Yeah, this looks weird at the moment, but no worries, we'll fix it. At this moment, the things that matter is the way it fits here. We don't mind this, we don't mind this. This will all be cut off. So right now, all I need to do is pin this to this in a way that we get as little creases as possible. I am actually thinking maybe I should undo this stitch line. I'll have to play around with this. We'll fix this.
And indeed, after some struggling with pinning, I decided to take the crotch seam apart again and pin the two pant pieces separately. That already worked a lot better. After deciding how big the gap should be, it was time for the very finicky task of sewing a stretch to a non-stretch fabric. But I think it worked out pretty nice. Then it was time to finish the gap. When fitting, I realized I actually liked the puffiness of the pants. So it was cut in such a way that we can add a big pleat to compensate for the excess fabric. The edge of the gap was finished by just folding the fabric over twice.
And this is where we are at the moment. I'm already quite happy with it. This turned out super well, and the pants, the ideas were so weird, I didn't know if they would end up working, and I think it actually does. However, now we need to attach everything and make it appear as if it is one bodysuit again. My idea was to make a belt, loop it around, click it close, just hide the edges with the belt. What could go wrong? But then I realized something. I need the stretch in this to put it on. And if I sew this stretchy fabric to this non-stretchy fabric, I won't have to stretch anymore. I can just make the belt and attach it at certain points with snap buttons. However, this fabric is so stretchy and unstable that if I use a few snap buttons, I think it's just going to peek out from underneath the belt. So, I think I'm going to ask some friends for ideas, maybe see if the Greylight group actually knows how to fix this, and you know what? It's also a Monday. I usually don't get a lot of thinking work done during the week. I'm gonna get this off the table and start cutting the jacket, because that is nice and brainless work.
Is what I thought, because of course this also needed some pattern alterations involving some thinking. Fortunately, they weren't the most difficult alterations, which means I could get to the cutting quite quickly. The jacket itself is pretty simple too, and the fabric is a lot easier to work with than the bodysuit, so it went together pretty fast. I wanted the collar to stand up and be a bit bulky, so that was made from double layered fabric. First, one side was attached to the jacket, then the second layer attached to the top, after which it could be flipped over and sewn onto the neckline. This way the top and the bottom edge are nicely finished as well. Then the sleeves can be closed and inserted. And it is time for a small fitting to determine the sleeve length.
Partially because I had very muted colors up till now, and partially because my color palette was accidentally getting very close to another faction, I decided to add an accent color with, well, the color of the restaurant that my android will be working at, which is a very bright purple. So I did this test piece. I just started with a wide zigzag, made it even wider, and then did a buttonhole stitch. And I think from what I'm seeing so far, I like this one best. So this is, I think, the one that I'll be using. And on the back for the bobbin, I'm just using regular black, so you will hardly see it. But on the front, you will see this nice purple. So let's finish these sleeve edges and let's see what this looks like. With that, we set the jacket aside for now and return to the bodysuit. This is where we left off, and I think I know how to go forward. I had a good chat with some people and they had some great ideas. It basically involves a whole lot of elastic. Luckily, I still had this around. It's nice and sturdy elastic, and I think this will work really well to attach to the edge of this. And I have this, which is slightly less sturdy, but I just didn't have enough of this. And then I found I still had this elastic. It's the exact width that I want the belt to be, and I think it actually looks pretty cool. So if I insert small strips of this on the sides and on the back, we have an elastic belt, which means we can actually permanently attach this to this, which just makes this one complete set of pants, which will solve all my issues on how this will stay up. That only means that this and this have to be able to separate to still go to the toilet, but we'll figure that out later.
To also make sure that the edge won't fray, it was folded over before attaching the elastic. Making the belt was a fun bit of work. After calculating everything so it would end up nice and even, all the parts could be cut to length and sewn together. This way we end up with a fabric elastic belt. Then it is attached to the pants on one side, but it's not sewn all the way around to allow for some extra stretch at the front, after which we can double up the belt and neatly hide the edges by folding them inwards. The same goes for the loose bits at the front. Now that test fitting the pants is in a suitable to be shown on YouTube stage again, this is what they look like. And with this test fit, we can pin in the buckles on the front. With that, the pants are pretty much done and we can start joining the pieces. The bottom edge of the top is finished with elastic band as well. And yeah, it really needs to be attached to the belt. But with how sturdy the elastic made the edge, I think this can be solved with a few snaps. And if a few isn't enough, I have plenty. So a bit of hand sewing snaps it is. In the end, I found 6 snaps spaced relatively evenly around the waist to be plenty. I didn't like the length of the original zipper I had laying around, so I bought a new one. And with that, we can now shorten the jacket to the actual zipper length, which I think works nicely. The bottom edge was again double folded and stitched with the accent collar on top. Because the jacket ended up even wider than I anticipated, the zipper was attached with more seam allowance. After finishing this edge and folding the zipper, this was also stitched flat with the accent collar. A choice that I am still really happy with. It absolutely adds that needed bit of interest. And that finishes the garment parts. This ended up a lot more intricate to make than I had anticipated, and I am pretty happy with the way it turned out. But this is still not an android. So guess what? You can expect another part in this build in which we will actually cyberpunk it up. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.